The judge in the show trial of Ms. Tymoshenko delivered a guilty verdict and sentenced the former premier to 7 years in prison. In addition, she is banned from holding public office for 3 years. But Yushchina, Ms. Tymoshenko's party, said that the shameful verdict is a blow not only to democracy and makes a complete mockery of the Ukrainian justice system and threatens Ukraine's European future. Unless quashed, the verdict slams the door on Ukraine's hopes to closer integration with Europe. Obviously, the world reacted to the Tymoshenko verdict instantaneously and unanimously. The White House issued a statement saying that the U.S. is deeply concerned by Tymoshenko's conviction. The President of the European Parliament, Jerzy Buzek, made the following statement: "I deeply regret the Ukrainian court's decision to sentence the former Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko to 7 years in prison. The context and conditions of this verdict raise concerns about the politically motivated nature and about a selective application of the rule of law in Ukraine. I have serious doubts about the fairness, independence, and transparency of the trial." Amnesty International also had an immediate statement this morning as well. "The prosecution against Yulia Tymoshenko is politically motivated, and the charges against her are not internationally recognized offenses. They are attempts to criminalize decisions that she made in the course of her work," said John Deluzian, the European and Central Asian Deputy Program Director of Amnesty International. Poor political decisions of this kind, paradoxically, even Moscow called Ukraine's sentencing of Tymoshenko anti-Russian, even though the National Security and Defense Council called for the arrest of opposition leaders in Ukraine way back in December 2008, a full year and 3 months before the election of President Yanukovych and the Party of Regions. So we know exactly where those directions came from. There were over 1,000 news stories on the Tymoshenko case around the entire world. I'd like to cite one quick statistic that was released last Friday by the Danish Helsinki Committee for Human Rights that spotlights Ukraine's human rights and judicial record. Only 0.2% of the people indicted or charged by the prosecution in Ukraine are actually acquitted or set free by the courts in Ukraine in the past year. In other words, 2 out of 1,000 people are set free, and the rest, 998, are found guilty in all criminal charges in Ukraine. In real life, this means that the absence of presumption of innocence and that the judiciary does not function as an impartial and independent controller of executive power. In Ukraine, which in fact this ad hoc group didn't exist 4 months ago. We organized the past 3 demonstrations and have been working hard behind the scenes to get Canadian politicians talking to Ukrainian opposition leaders. And as a result of that action, an official invitation several weeks ago was issued by the leader of the Canadian Liberal Party, Mr. Bob Rae, to Yulia Tymoshenko to attend the 41st session of Canadian Parliament. We hope, though, that someone from the opposition will be able to take advantage of that official invitation. And I just want to thank Boris Jasnowski for all the hard work that he did in finalizing that invitation. So thank you very much. Give these t-shirts out to our volunteers, but after the community started to ask how they could purchase them, we decided to hold a raffle for these t-shirts. And I've got, somebody could just turn around and show one of the black t-shirts. We're going to be holding a raffle for this t-shirt. It has Ukraini's Volю, Freedom for Ukraine on the front, and Батьківщина понад все, the country beyond everything. Okay. Or your morning cup of coffee. 2 tickets for 5 or 5 for 10. So please support this as well. We also have our t-shirts from the Canadian Group for Democracy in Ukraine. I'm wearing one of them, and you can order. What should Canada and the West be doing next? And hopefully they'll give us some good advice tonight. At the end of the demonstration, I'd also like to address the question that many of you, in fact, have been asking. As you can see, the posters that people are holding beside me, over 125 political prisoners have been incarcerated in pre-trial detention in Ukrainian jails. In fact, another staggering number, over 800 people have died this year alone in pre-trial detention in Ukrainian courts before their cases ever reached courts. Thousands of people, just like you and me, who have shown up to demonstrations across Ukraine one day are losing their jobs the next. So it's not just about Tymoshenko, it's about ordinary Ukrainians just like you and me in the streets of Ukraine.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming out this evening. I just want to say that, as Walter was saying, that Yulia Tymoshenko's arrest and detention and now prosecution, it's just really a punctuation mark on an ongoing systematic persecution for politically motivated reasons in Ukraine, and this needs to stop. These are unacceptable. We need to work with our allies, the European Union primarily, also the United States and other like-minded countries in the West, to make sure that the Ukrainian government is aware that the eyes of the world are on Ukraine. As you know, we're in some negotiations with Ukraine on issues like trade and investment, and they need to know that those ongoing pursuits with Ukraine are contingent upon democratic reforms, on respect for human rights and the rule of law. And we need to do that together as an international community. So I really want to urge this group of people to continue to contact our politicians, including our government, and make sure that we continue to apply the pressure on Ukraine. And we need to do this across the world and make sure that Ukraine is aware that the eyes of the world are upon her. Thank you very much.
By the way, Bernard Chauncey and the Conservative government issued an order in council, I believe it's called, or an order?
Yes, I need from a member statement on September 19th.
Thank you very much for that statement in Parliament that appeared in that circuit. Thank you. Our next speaker, I'm delighted to introduce the NDP member.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the hard, dedicated work of the Canadian Group for Democracy in Ukraine. Give yourselves a big round of applause for all the work that you have done defending democracy. Now, how do I say it? Ukraini Volyu. Ukraini Volyu. We're here because we believe in political freedom in Ukraine. And Ukrainian Canadians and Ukrainians in Ukraine know how hard the struggle has been for democracy and political freedom. And as someone said to me tonight, it's like going back 20 years or more than 20 years. It's like going back to some Soviet past that somehow this government thinks it's okay to have people imprisoned for political motives, that somehow you can lock up your opposition for political motives. And we're not just speaking about Yulia Tymoshenko, but the over 125 political prisoners that are now detained in Ukraine. And the world is not fooled by this. The world is not fooled into thinking that somehow this is okay, or this is government by the rule of law. So we need to stand up and protest against what's going on in Ukraine, but what can we in Canada do? Well, you know, we're a trading country. Ukraine is a trading country, and we are right now engaged in trade talks with Ukraine. Now, that's a good thing to promote trade between our two countries, but trade cannot be subsidized by political oppression. That is not okay. And so what our government needs to do, our government needs to stand up and say, yes, we will trade with you, but we do not accept that you are detaining political opposition and denying democracy in Ukraine. So we can say as a country that Ukraine needs to defend political freedoms, and just as we need to guard our political freedoms here in Canada, so too political freedoms need to be guarded in Ukraine. So I want to thank each and every one of you for standing up here, for being here this evening, and each of us needs to redouble our efforts. I, as a member of Parliament, intend to ensure, I've already written to the Prime Minister about this, I intend to continue to press the government of Ukraine, but each of us needs to play our part. And I want to thank you for your leadership as a community in ensuring that the people of Canada are watching, and we are going to ensure that this protest continues. Thank you very much.
The president of the Lithuanian Canadian community and board as well. Marcus?
Let's make it very clear. Let's be very clear on this point that democracy does not flourish in Ukraine. Democracy is not there, and the trappings of democracy are there. The trappings of democracy, including a Ministry of Justice, including a false mandate to rule Ukraine, is there. But let's be clear that Ukraine is in a internal occupation. The member communities of the Central and Eastern European Council stand with you. We stand with your community, and we stand with the citizens of your home country to bring forth those injustices and urge our Canadian government to stand with us. Thank you.
Anybody see him? Okay, if he does show up, please let us know. Next on our roster, we'd like to call Mr. Boris Potapenko from the League of Ukrainian Canadians.